a victim is learning to forgive them. You can't be a victim if you don't learn to forgive. I made a mistake. I turned myself in for that. My mom and my dad died while I was in here. There's no greater punishment than what I've gone through in 9 years. The only person I have now is my sister. I don't talk to my kids because I was incarcerated and I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I want to move forward with my life. Some people are not willing to forgive and let it go. I need to move past. I would never ever be able to forget this. I would have this on my back and on my. I would have this monkey on my back forever. I'm ashamed. It's embarrassing how I did this to somebody like that, especially a woman. And I know that. I'm here. I've been here sober for 9 years, thinking about that.
Never a good idea to preach to a survivor how they should feel, how they should forgive. He's facing over 100 years in prison for attempted murder to attempting to murder her, the survivor. Now, if you couldn't tell from her facial expressions, she's not buying any of this. And she stood up and she left a mic drop at this man's parole hearing, which we're about to see. And then there's something else which is quite interesting, Sir Richard pointed out, and that's that there was a significant Supreme Court decision based around this man, which we will touch in the unpacking. For now, let's jump in.
Good morning. We're on the record now. This is the time set for a rehearing for George Martinez. Is that you?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I'll be lips. Okay,
Can you tell me your offender number?
140674.
Thank you. If you can't hear me, can you hear it all? Or
I can read lips.
okay.
Thank you.
My name is Blake Hills. I'm a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole, and I've been assigned to conduct this hearing. I need to swear you in, so please raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you will give will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, did you receive 7 days written notice of the hearing?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a blue disclosure packet?
What's that?
Did you receive some blue paperwork?
Yes, sir.
And that paperwork should have talked about the offenses, about what you've been doing in prison and other things.
Yes, sir.
Do you feel like you're ready to go forward, or do you need more time?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything about the blue paperwork that was incorrect that you need to bring to my attention?
As far as I know, I think it was pretty accurate.
It was accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell you how we're going to proceed. I received an email that said the victim is going to appear and make a statement remotely. Do you see her on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it right here.
Okay. Now, I guess what we'll have to do here is she'll make a statement, but so the victim on the screen here is going to make a statement. It appears that you won't be able to hear her. Is that right?
Okay.
Or do you think you can hear what?
I think I could read the lips.
Okay.
I think so.
What I will do, if you can't hear it, is I'll repeat a summary of what she said so you can respond if you wish to.
Sorry, Mom. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you better.
Okay. Ma'am, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you for appearing. Even though I have your name written down, I need you to state your name for the record. And will you please raise your right hand?
Yes, I am pulling into a parking lot right now. I tried to make it there in time, but my car's got electrical issues, so I'm parking right as we speak. All right.
Do you promise that the testimony you will give will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead and tell me what you would like the board to know.
All right. Well, there's several things, but I think this is the definition of somebody that should do life in prison for not just the reason of punishment, but I think there's little to no doubt that he'll hurt, if not kill somebody else, if he ever is to get out. Um, for one thing, he had no remorse after this. I honestly thought that he might have had some kind of psychological break. He tried to kill me 4 different ways. He snuck up behind me with a hammer. He texted me 2 hours before this all happened and thanked me profusely for everything I've ever done for him. Told me that I was his best friend and the only support he had, which had seemed to be the case. He had been living with us for a couple months. But afterwards, I received two email threats from the jail and one phone call from my own friend that was in his section, being told I better not show up to court or else, kind of thing. Um, and then there's also the fact that he had served 7 years on an attempted homicide for trying to kill another girl, who I have something that she would like me to read. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but I'll come back to that. But he had already tried to kill another female about 10 years prior. While this was happening, so he snuck up behind me with a hammer and hit me in the back of the head and hit me 2 more times in the head and once in the eye before I was able to get away from him. Then smothered me with laundry, choked me with his bare hands, and then strangled me with my son's belt until I pretended to go unconscious. Then told me he was going to tie me up. I had to beg him to think about my son and give him my car, money, and my phone, and promise I wouldn't leave my apartment for 3 hours, to get him to not tie me up. They ended up dropping the attempted homicide and aggravated kidnapping charges without telling me, and they didn't inform me of the sentencing either until an hour before, so I didn't get to speak at that. So that's why this is especially important to me. But he also told me while this was all happening that, and I'll never forget the words, and this is verbatim, I have to kill you so I can go back to prison because I have no place else to go. So somebody's motive is what is intended to be a deterrent. I don't know how you can ever say you can safely put that person back on the streets. I understand that he's probably going to use drugs as an excuse and state how he's programmed and been rehabilitated, but we had not done any drugs that day, for one thing, and I know for a fact he hadn't either. And I've been in and out of recovery and addiction, and that's not an excuse. People don't do that kind of thing without having that in them to begin with. He wasn't under any type of psychosis or anything like that. Or like I said, he would have had remorse if that were the case as well. So I don't know if even with his legal defense, my attorney told me that their argument was that he was just trying to hurt me, not kill me, but that was indeed the reason why he had done these things. So that being the case, if you release him at any point and he decides that being an adult is too hard, which it was the case, I had told him that he had to leave probably about a week before. I told him he had 2 weeks left. So this was a few days before he would have to move out of my house. So he just, I guess, decided that it was too hard to fend for himself because my boyfriend and I had been providing everything for him. He actually turned himself in a few weeks prior, and they told him the jail, Salt Lake County, was too full and gave him a promise to appear. So he really did want to go back. So I don't know what the deterrent would possibly be for him to be out on the streets. What would prevent him from doing this again? And then, like I said, it was an attempted homicide. Absolutely, he tried to kill me 4 different ways. And am I allowed to read what she had to say?
How long is the
It's
statement?
brief. It's very brief.
We're a bit short on time, but if it's brief, go ahead.
Okay. Her name's Tasha. She said, I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the parole of George Matthew Martinez. I'm a victim of his violent crime and I have firsthand experience with his dangerous behavior. Without provocation, he stabbed me in the neck, a traumatic event that has had a lasting impact on my life. What's even more disturbing is that he has bragged about his actions while incarcerated, showing no remorse or accountability. This lack of empathy and willingness to boast about his crime suggests that he remains a significant threat to the public. I firmly believe that if he's released, he poses a high risk of harming others, potentially with deadly consequences. His actions have already demonstrated a disregard for human life, and I fear that he will repeat his behavior if given the opportunity. I urge the board to consider the severity of his crime, his lack of remorse, and the danger he poses to society before making their decision. I strongly believe that George does not deserve parole and should remain incarcerated to protect the community.
Thank you, ma'am. You can go ahead and remain on the line or sign off. It's your choice. What I'll need you to do is just mute your microphone.
All right. Thank you.
But thank you for appearing.
Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Martinez, did you hear that statement?
Yeah. I have a few questions.
Yes, first let me tell you, you have the opportunity to respond if you wish, but you don't have to. You're not required to. So go ahead and ask your question.
My question is, I understand she's my victim and she's, I mean, by the incident why I'm here, I'm wondering if she can make a statement on somebody else's behalf when there's no proof that she even made it. You know what I mean? She's speaking for somebody else. It would be more appropriate if she was, she sent that letter herself or she showed up to the board. Because that crime was 22 years ago. She never showed up for court. I took that responsibility and I accepted it. She didn't even show up for court. There was a plea bargain. I took the responsibility for it. So it's like, but she had nothing to do with the crime. That was a totally different incident, and nobody knows what happened about that.
So,
Yeah.
let me answer your question.
Because you don't know if that letter came from her. She could have wrote it herself.
Can I
could have
speak
wrote
really
that.
quickly? I can
Um,
prove that.
No, just hold on for a second,
Okay.
everybody. So what we're concerned with today is the statement of this victim who has appeared. And this crime,
But that's somebody else's letter. That letter she's writing from another past crime.
I understand. I understand all you need to do is respond, if you wish, to the statement that Haley made today.
But with that statement made from her, that wasn't from her. She read that letter from somebody else.
Right. I understand that
I
was,
don't understand how can she write a letter on behalf of somebody else. I can I can forge a letter in your name and say that you wrote this letter. How is she allowed to speak? Why she has the right to appear or either send that letter to herself.
so let me answer your question. All right. A victim can say what they feel, what they believe, and her statement was based on your entire history. I completely understand your point that I don't have the copy of the letter. I don't know who it was sent from. I understand that. What I'm saying is don't focus on that.
Yeah.
I understand what it is and accept it for what it is. What I and you should be most concerned with is the description of what happened in this case to Haley, who has spoken to us
Yeah.
today. Do you understand that? My focus today is on what happened to her, what you did to her. Do you understand that?
That's what I'm here for. Yeah, I
So-
paid my
so-
dues on that.
So I don't want to spend the entire hearing in a debate about that letter. Let's set the letter aside and focus on what you did here in this case.
That's what I would like to do.
Okay, so ma'am, do you understand that? I understand his criminal record. I have a copy of that. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate your statement, but I want Mr. Martinez to focus on his responsibility today for what he did to you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I am willing to submit. That was over Facebook from her Facebook, so I can submit screenshots if that would help. That's what the victim coordinator suggested I do as well. So
Sure. Let's again, thank you for making the statement. What we'll do now is just move on, not worry about the Facebook statement.
absolutely.
We'll just put it out of our minds for now, Mr. Martinez. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm not dwelling on that statement. I'm dwelling on what she said about what you did to her.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a response, or you're not required to make a response?
I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I'm not blaming that on that. But that, like a lot of people, people in recovery and people that are addicts don't understand that we're under the influence of drugs and narcotics. We're not our normal self. I got arrested under drugs and narcotics. I understand too. I've been incarcerated for 9 years. I've gotten 2 write-ups. I've read a lot of books. Went to every class and every group there. For her to say that I haven't done anything, she's totally incorrect. So she's saying I haven't done nothing. I went to the Haven treatment. I went to Odyssey treatment. I turned myself in because I was trying to move forward with my life, not because I didn't have anywhere to stay. I can have my whole family corroborate that and say that I have housing. I'm on Social Security. I was getting Social Security checks. So for her to say Facebook and all this like this, she sent me emails in county jail threatening me, bringing up crime. She's on my Facebook. You can look up my Facebook, and she's threatening. She's on my crime. I'm trying to have my family shut my Facebook down. She's constantly on my Facebook. When I get out, I want to shut it down. I understand from a victim is learning to forgive them. You can't be a victim if you don't learn to forgive. I made a mistake. I turned myself in for that. My mom and my dad died while I was in here. There's no greater punishment than what I've gone through in 9 years. The only person I have now is my sister. I don't talk to my kids because I was incarcerated and I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I want to move forward with my life. Some people are not willing to forgive and let it go. I need to move past. I would never ever be able to forget this. I would have this on my back and on my I would have this monkey on my back forever. I'm ashamed. It's embarrassing how I did this to somebody like that, especially a woman. And I know that. I've been here sober for 9 years thinking about that. It's embarrassing. It's just like, and I think about it, it's like somebody's mom. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want somebody to do that to my mom. So I get a little bit disappointed and sad for somebody to try to speak on my behalf when they don't know no idea what I've been through. I'm in here deaf, 9 years. I can't be around. I went out to population and the program and try to get program better so I can get into the program. But because I've been inactive game member since 2006, I tried to go out there and I was willing to take a sacrifice. I even went out there. They let me go out there, but they were trying to put me back in the gangs and stuff like that. So I went back to the math, and I'm in a program in Antelope. I was in a program in Gunnison.
So let's hold on. We'll talk about programs in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. The one thing I did not hear you say is that you're sorry.
I'm not done. I'm not done. That's what I'm saying. I haven't finished.
Well, let me tell you something, okay? It's not appropriate to blame the victim and
It's not.
say you're disappointed in the victim. She has the right to feel however she wants to feel, and she has the right to not forgive you if she doesn't want to, because you're the one who did all this stuff and you're the one who's in prison.
Yes.
You understand that?
Yes, sir.
So we really need to move to some other things rather than just have you talk about whatever
Yeah,
you want. Let me ask you this. Are you sorry or not?
yeah, because the last time I came to the board and I did that, she started yelling at the board member saying that I wasn't and I was manipulating the board. So I don't want to. I'm afraid to say anything because everything. The last board hearing, you can go back and look at the recording. Everything I said, she said I was manipulative. I know that I would never be able to get forgiveness, and I would always have to be sorry for what I did. You said I didn't say it. I'm sorry, but then I just said I was ashamed and embarrassed of this. I always will be for the rest of my life. I would never be able to forget this. This is something I would never be able to put behind me. I can't put it behind me. This is a mistake. I've done 9 years, 10 years of my life in here, and it's nobody's fault but my own. I turned myself in on this. So that if that doesn't show responsibility and where I'm sorry, I turned myself in for this.
Okay.
I turned
understand.
myself in it. That shows that I did take responsibility for it. And my last crime, I mean, and I did take responsibility for it. I did all my time for it. I didn't take no plea bargains or nothing. And I am very sorry. You know, I'm sorry to me. I'm sorry to her. I'm sorry to my family. I'm sorry to the board. I'm sorry to everybody that has to do. This is not. I've been here for almost 10 years, sir.
Okay. I understand. Thank you. Did you say you're still an active gang member?
No, I'm not. I said I wasn't.
When did you drop out?
2006.
How is your mental health currently?
Good.
Any issues that are not being addressed?
No.
I understand your hearing condition. Are you able to work if you were to be released?
Yes. I want to work, even though I get Social Security. I want to work.
What sort of work would you do?
I like working in warehouses, labor. I like graveyards because I also know I pay more. I've got my GED, my diploma. Voc rehab puts me in trades. They will pay for my journeyman, my trades, everything. That's the thing with my Social Security, my disability. I get involved with voc rehab. They get me hearing aids, journeyman, trade. I get housing. I get Social Security. Even if I can work, I don't have an income. I have family that supports me.
All right. Thanks for answering that question. You are correct. You have successfully completed a number of programs. Most recently, you completed the MRT program. Was that just a time filler or did you learn some things?
I did that on my own. That was
Tell me
for
what
me,
you learned. Tell me what you learned.
learning to take responsibility. Um, a lot of it communication and having somebody like a sponsor to talk to. You, I learned a lot more about my anger than I ever did in any of those classes. And I've come a long ways to how I used to be because I was deaf and I used to be real closed off. I didn't talk. But now I've learned to communicate, talk with people, and be understanding of another person's opinion. It's not. I've come a long ways since I've been here.
Now, I thought you said you had 2 write-ups, but there've actually been 4 disciplinary violations.
Okay, and my last board package that I had two. They had two. One for contraband and one was for a pin or something like that.
Since then, there's one from July of 22 and one from January of 23.
23.
But
Well,
let's-
also it was in Gunnison. Yeah.
from trying to have stuff contraband sent to the facility.
Yeah, they said well I took responsibility for it. I have an ADA for headphones, and they thought I was getting put them in, but there was nothing in the headphones. There was nothing. I just took responsibility. I was like, all right.
So you were asking for headphones?
I have a clear ADA clearance to order headphones from my family, and somebody was saying that I was bringing in contraband. So no contraband came in. Never got caught with any drugs. I have my headphones now. It was just big misunderstanding and got into dry chamber down here.
Okay. Is there anything else the board needs to know, or have we talked about it through the hearing already?
I'm very sorry. I really am. It's embarrassing. I'm ashamed of this. I always will be ashamed of it. You know what I mean? I have there's people that know that I did this, and it is sad. You know what I mean? I've never been able to forget that. This is not something I'll ever be able to forgive myself or expect somebody to forgive me for it, because I don't know what I would do if it was the other way around. I'd be hurt. I'd be sad. I would. I can't. You know what I mean? I just know that I am very remorseful. I lost my mom and my dad while I was incarcerated for this because of me. You know, like I never got to see my mom and dad in 10 years. I mean, I haven't seen my kids in 12. So I'm very remorseful because I did nothing but punish myself. I mean, I have no contact with my kids. My kid's almost 18 years old. I haven't seen him since he was 6.
I think we can all agree that this was your fault and nobody else's. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
And that you're actually not the victim. The person you did this to is the victim, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. 100%.
Okay. As you know, you don't receive an answer here today. At least 3 members of the board must agree on what the next step is, whether it's parole or a rehearing or something else. Do you understand?
Yes.
That decision can take a few weeks or perhaps a month.
May I say something?
Yes.
I want Haley to know I'm very sorry. I know that she'll always be mad at me. I know she'll always be disappointed in me. We were close, you know, and I sad to say, but most every time that we've been together, we were doing drugs, and that's sad. And we were really good friends, even though through all that. And I met her husband through behavior treatment center, and she did care about me. You know what I mean? She did a lot for me. You know what I mean? And she did help me a lot. I admit that. And she helped me turn myself in. You know what I mean? And I had some warrants I was trying to take care of so I get my own place. So I couldn't get a place with the warrants. And she did help me a lot. You know what I mean? She let me use her car. I watched her son, and you know, and she called my mom and looked out for me and stuff. You know what I mean? And she did. She was a good friend, and I messed that up. You know what I mean? And that was my fault. You know? I really wish that she would know that I'm really sorry. I know she doesn't believe me, but I really do. I really am sorry.
Well, she's entitled to feel however she feels. That's her right. And there's no, we can't, you do not have the right to tell her how to feel. Understood? You agree with that?
Yes,
You're the one who did wrong here, not her.
I know.
So ma'am, thank you for appearing and making that statement. And we are going to conclude the hearing at this time.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank you,
ask
ma'am.
something very quickly or no?
What? What was
May
that?
I ask something quickly?
Sure.
I'm just wondering because he says that his motive was not to go to prison. So why did he do it?
Well, ma'am, that's something that we will probably never know. Never know the motive, the real motivation here.
You can't answer
I
that.
wish we did, but we'll have to address what it was that happened. All right?
So he
Well,
can't answer that.
we've gone way past the allotted time, ma'am. So we are going to have to move on to some of the other hearings. Okay?
Yes, so
But thank you for appearing, and we'll conclude the hearing at this time.
Okay, so what do you think Utah decided? I almost feel like you never really know. Utah's an interesting state with their decisions. I shall share it with you now. Sir Richard has filled it in the spreadsheet, and they said no. he needs to have a rehearing in 2027. So 8/20/27. So they basically kicked the ball down the road for 3 years. The survivor won't have to think about this upcoming parole hearing, at least, for another 3 years until he has it. But as we know, the stress can start, way before the 3 years is already up. Now it's so interesting to see that he has so many offenses with a full term date of October 28th, 2120. So, it's just kind of funny how in Utah they hand out these huge sentences that are just gimmicks. What's also funny is that according to the information Sir Richard shared, he got 15 years for the attempted murder, okay? But he got 5 to 100 years for the aggravated assault and 100 years for the aggravated robbery. So I don't know how they do their sentencing in Utah. It's just none of it makes any sense to me. And remember how we spoke about how there was a major Supreme Court ruling. We will touch on that in a second. It actually has nothing to do with this case that he's locked up for. It has to do with a completely kind of irrelevant case, how he was pulled over and arrested for like possession of narcotics. But there was a Supreme Court ruling about whether you could pull someone. We can go over that in a second, as Sir Richard pointed it out. And it is interesting, I think, for law nerds to be able to associate this man to a ruling that is probably referenced quite often in true crime community. So, but let's just go over first, I guess, okay, let's just unpack this hearing. The survivor gets up and leaves, really good for her to stand up and take, I don't know, I don't want to speak for her. So I was going to say take her power back, but maybe she already had it, but at least to lay down, the truth. And she was also able to share her friend's feelings. Now, I to Mr. George Matthew, I hear where he's coming from by being upset that maybe that letter was permitted to be read, or not permitted, but at least he wanted to get his. I get that whole part. He was like, it's hearsay to the umpth degree, and who says it's real, and blah blah blah. But not a good move, anyways. That wasn't the point. The interviewer. That wasn't the point to say that. He handled this hearing terribly. That what he should have just gone up to was how sorry he is, but really he's playing the victim. Poor me, woe is me. He's actually saying that she needs to get over it. She needs to be able to forgive. She can't. And we've seen this before, and this parole interviewer handled it really well. I mean, he kind of like seems like a poster child, is that the right word? No, right out of casting for what one might expect in a Utah parole board interviewer. When I first saw him, I was like, okay, when I think Utah, I think this is the kind of the guy. Although Utah has many different interviewers with very different personalities. And this guy has this like monotone voice and way of doing things, which is just very different. But man, I mean, he laid down the law when he had to, and I think that was very nice. And he laid it down like 3 separate times. And they did go over on their time. They have like parole hearings every 20 minutes, and they're very clockwork in Utah. They're very on schedule. So they went over more than 10 minutes on this particular hearing. And they have different types of parole hearings. There are parole hearings that can go an hour, but on this schedule, it's like every 20 minutes. And the day's hearings were like 9 hours. It's very tiring. And I thought that he handled it well in terms of letting her speak and whatnot and things like that, and in terms of putting him in his place. And it's just scary. It's so interesting to hear that he actually tried to check himself into prison before he did this. And anyone who would check them in the prisons or jail before he did this, the jail's like, no, we don't have room for you. And it's, if you're willing, I mean, you get a point, if you're willing to check yourself into jail, that's someone who is, when jail's not a deterrent, prison's not a deterrent. And she did want to know why did he do it? And I thought it was a good answer how the parole interviewer said, we're never going to know. And he had to cut off the dialogue. He couldn't have the dialogue there. I don't know if it would have been risky. You don't know how the guy would have responded. And then he's stuck in the middle. But maybe the parole interview could have recommended her getting in touch with some type of victim services to create that dialogue. That would be the only thing maybe he could have suggested to her that would have been maybe another way I would have handled it. But let's just go through his record. So he has 2013 aggravated assault, but this is probably DV in front of a child. That's 417, 2013. 520, 2013, a DV assault again. And also in presence of a child. 12-4, 2013, possession of amphetamines. Trespassing, 8/2/2014 criminal mischief, 11/3/2014 possession of amphetamine, graffiti, criminal trespassing, vandalism, 10/27/2015 criminal trespassing, aggravated robbery, aggravated assault, and 3807 command of a police attempted murder. It's like randomly in there. 3807 attempted murder. And that's funny because he got 15 years for the attempted murder with an EOS of 2017. But then as you see, he has all of these things after 2007. So he obviously got out on parole within like 6 years of that. And then they gave him the 100-year sentences for these robberies. It's so weird how they do things. 11/13/08, a warrant for arrest. 1709 violation. I mean, it's just, isn't that weird when I read it out and I realize that they weren't all packed into one? He actually got the attempted murder in 2016. I mean, in 2007. Wow. It's crazy. Okay. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Eventually they will let him out. Now we can go to the Supreme Court ruling thing. But it just shows the guy's dangerous and so narcissistic. He's really like the whole hearing. It's about him, me. And it's like, that's just not the way. It's not a good way to get parole, right? Utah Supreme Court police can ask for ID, run background checks on car passengers. So this was the Supreme Court ruling. So the Utah Supreme Court has ruled that it's not a burden for police to ask identification and run a background. Sorry, sovereign citizens. Run a background check on you in traffic stop, even if you're not the driver of the car. In a ruling handed down this week, the state's top court overturned the 2014 lower court ruling stemming from a traffic stop with a passenger arrested on narcotic possession. The ruling states Utah Highway Patrol Trooper Jeremy Horn stopped a car for improper lane change. George Matthew Martinez Jr. was a passenger inside the vehicle. The trooper asked for his identification and ran a background check on him, coming up with a warrant for Martinez's arrest. A glass pipe with meth was found on Martinez. The ruling said he was arrested and charged with possession. Martinez challenged his conviction, arguing the trooper did not have reasonable suspicion to ask for ID to run a background check on the passenger. A lower court ruled in favor of Martinez, and Utah Attorney General Office took it to Utah Supreme Court. This case presents a single issue. Does law enforcement officer violate the Fourth Amendment if she requests that a passenger voluntarily provide identification, then runs a background check on that passenger without reasonable suspicion that the passenger has committed or is about to commit a crime? So is that what it is? If you ask and the person gives it, but what if he had refused? We conclude that an officer does not violate the Fourth Amendment if she does so. The ruling cited officer safety as a reason. It could have broader implications on this case, giving a police wider authority to ask for identification from passengers in simple traffic stops. In a footnote, Justice Pierce noted that UHP did not demand to see the passenger's identification, but just asked. So, first of all, why couldn't she ask? That's actually, like, there's one thing to demand, and there's another to ask. So I'm actually I assume she demanded it. but she asked and he handed it. That doesn't seem to me like anything you couldn't do. That's like, police do that stuff all the time. Can I come inside the house? They're not getting a search warrant. They're not barging in. They're saying, can I come in? If you let them in, that's your problem. I'm actually curious why that went to the Supreme Court. She literally asked, but what did they rule? They said the Utah Supreme Court ruled it is not a burden for police officers, so for police to ask for identification. You're not obligated to. You're still not losing your Fourth Amendment right here. I don't even know why this would have gone to Supreme Court. It seems like a mistake by the judge to not, like, you can always ask. But there you have it. And now you know, if you ever do see this case come up, you can say, I saw this guy's parole hearing. But thank you, Sir Richard, for the information. And we'll keep you posted as this guy proceeds through parole. But man, if you ask me, he's dangerous. He's dangerous. Some people just don't get it. And way to go for our survivor for standing up. And with that, I'll let you go.
While this was happening, so he snuck up behind me with a hammer and hit me in the back of the head and hit me 2 more times in the head and once in the eye before I was able to get away from him. Then smothered me with laundry, choked me with his bare hands, and then strangled me with my son's belt until I pretended to go unconscious. Then told me he was going to tie me up. I had to beg him to think about my son and give him my car, money, and my phone, and promise I wouldn't leave my apartment for 3 hours to get him to not tie me up. They ended up dropping the attempted homicide and aggravated kidnapping charges without telling me, and they didn't inform me of the sentencing either until an hour before, so I didn't get to speak at that. So that's why this is especially important to me. But he also told me while this was all happening that, and I'll never forget the words, and this is verbatim, I have to kill you so I can go back to prison because I have no place else to go. So somebody's motive is what is intended to be a deterrent. I don't know how you can ever say you can safely put that person back on the streets